yours is yours. Not if it's ready, but we'll make sure.
Make sure you got problems like the hands when it's not.
Yeah.
So they have their own private contract.
I'm just wondering if there's any ordinance that would specify. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the West Goshen Township Board of Supervisors meeting for Tuesday, June the 20th. Will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be aware this meeting is being live streamed on the Township YouTube channel, and also the meeting may be audio or video recorded by people present in the room. First item of business is public comment. Is there anyone attending who would like to raise an issue that is not on the agenda tonight, or who has a question or comment for the board or staff? Okay, see any public comments? We'll move on to agenda item number 4, which is discussion regarding applications before the zoning hearing board. Chris, would you like to introduce these two items?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I will start with the application for 450 Ellis Lane, since the applicant is here this evening to present the application. So this application is for the Westchester Area School District for proposed improvements to the athletic fields at East High School. The applicant is seeking variance relief as follows. A relief from section 8447G3A in order to permit a portion of fencing to be 20 feet in height where 10 feet is permitted, and a variance from section 845710E6 in order to permit 36.561% of paved area where 36.27 currently exists and 30% is permitted. So this would be a requested increase of 0.291%. A copy of the application is provided before the board this evening. I will note the application is actually going to be heard on July 24th and not June 26th, as indicated in the information before the board. So with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant. I understand Mr. Thompson was reaching out to Amanda Sinquist today about that.
Okay, yeah. We thought it was going to be next Monday, but I gather if it's in July, we're going to have to adjust accordingly. It affects your construction schedule, but if that's the date, that's the date. So, my name is Ross Unruh. I'm here on behalf of the Westchester School District. Ryan Jennings is going to handle the application when the board, zoning hearing board, actually it is presented with the case. I was asked to come here tonight because he has another commitment, and other people in the firm have commitments elsewhere. We're very busy, and people are out and about in the different townships. So I said I'd be happy to come to make a brief presentation. The property involved is East High School, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And on the board, Ryan kindly put up the area photograph that shows the campus. And the area in red is generally the area where the fields are, which is the subject of the improvement. Now, the variance requests are corollary issues. What's being proposed is to change what are now grass fields, one for soccer and one for lacrosse, to become turf fields, so that they have greater utility. The problem with the grass fields is they're not available all the time and need time to recover, and the turf fields will permit the fields to be used, have greater utility, not only for school district athletics, but also for non-school people who may request to use the fields. So on this other plan, which shows the existing location of the fields in the bottom, two rectangles.
I have a point here, right?
Here we go.
That's mine.
Well,
Ross, here it is.
You can point it out.
I was working earlier today, but anyway, thanks.
Yep.
These are the two fields right here. And as a part of the project, it was decided to dress it up a little bit to improve the height of the fences that are there. At either ends, there are already 20-foot backstops. But the problem is with the different teams end up kicking the balls outside of the area, both for soccer and particularly for lacrosse. So if we could move on, I'll give you a little bit orientation to the neighborhood.
Do you want to go back to the parcel map?
No, just keep going forward for the photographs of the area. Oh, there we go. That's the point of access, and it's facing to the northeast, and you can see the fields to the right. And moving on to the next photograph, you get another picture of the visual to the northeast. You can see all the vegetation. And then the next picture shows it a little bit closer, and you can see the existing 20-foot fence, which is there now. And that's basically what's being proposed to go along that whole eastern property, or the line of the field. And then moving on to the next slide, you'll see a photograph toward the southwest with the various vegetation. You'll see the existing 4-foot fence, which will be replaced. And next slide, please. No, it's not showing up particularly clearly, but in any event, let's go to the next one. It shows the vegetation of this protected area, and there we go. There's the existing 12-foot fence, and that's what's being proposed both on the southwest and on the northeast. And then if we go to the next slide, we'll show the plan a little bit more closely. And this is where the existing fences are, and the blue area here, this whole area here is where the 20-foot fence will be. The 20-foot fence will be here, and the 20-foot fence will be here as well. There's some additional impervious paving here for a concrete pad for the these grandstands, and for access, there's a sidewalk along here, and that's basically to dress it up a little bit, make it a little bit safer for people to walk to and from the fields. So the main focus of the improvement is basically for the artificial turf fields to make them more usable, but as a part of it, they wanted to add the additional fencing to keep the soccer balls and the lacrosse balls all in the play areas, not off the site or into the other adjacent field. So that's basically it. The additional paved area under the zoning ordinance is fairly small. And this definition of paved area under the zoning ordinance, as indicated by the township manager, it's 0.291%, which is just an additional acreage of 0.164 acres. So they're asking for a de minimis variance for the paved area and a dimensional variance for the additional 20-foot fencing.
And where's the 20-foot fence now, the existing one, on this map?
The existing is right here,
Okay.
the existing is right here, but it doesn't go the whole length of that,
Okay.
border of the field.
So the township allowed the 20-foot only because it doesn't go the full length?
Did the ordinance change?
Yeah, whenever.
No, it's just been there as a backstop as long as I'm aware. It's more of a backstop now,
Okay.
and it's been there as a part of the playing field as long as,
Since 2003, 2004.
since
when they were installed.
2003.
Okay, so a 20-foot fence was allowed back then?
Correct.
Well, we don't know that.
Yeah.
Or it was,
We don't have a-
or we might have gotten a variance at that point in time. That's
Or just not anybody checked.
The campus was built in the early 1970s. It was expanded 20 years ago. So that whatever is here now is presumably was permitted 20 years ago. And they're just going to extend this fencing here and here. And those areas, as you can see from the visuals, it's pretty well screened. It would not appear to have any impact on adjacent areas. To the east of, northeast of here is this stormwater management facility with a lot of vegetation, and then you have Ellis Lane to the left. There's another stormwater management basin here, and there's a ball field further to the southwest. So this is pretty well contained in the school district campus. The fencing is that black chain link fence, which kind of blends into the scenery. So that's basically what's being proposed for the facility, and we're here to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Brian, this increase in impervious coverage, would that trigger any stormwater review?
Yes, I met with their engineering team and we discussed it. They will be applying for a grading permit, stormwater permit for this.
Okay.
So it's not just the walkways, it's also the concrete pads for the bleachers that they're going to be moving?
Yes, there's a concrete pad here for the stands, and there's a sidewalk along here. There's an entryway, I think, here for access to the field, and another one, I believe, here as well. my colleagues here in the audience can correct me, but I think that's basically
And then a small strip at the bottom of the screen.
here.
Yep.
And what's that for?
Just to connect the players' areas.
Oh, so the players can go back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that like a sidewalk size, or is it a bigger pad than that?
It's a sidewalk size.
So where are the bleachers going to be moved to?
They will be here and they'll be here. They're already there, but they're not on concrete, they're not so stable. We're going to just crush stones, and they wanted to make it a more stable circumstance by putting it on a concrete pad.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, so does the board have any particular position on this application for the zoning hearing board?
Neutral.
Will any of the residents be affected by these, or are they close by where they would be affected by the 20-foot fences?
No. There's a vegetated area in the stormwater management basin, and then you can see the road there.
There's one here and there's one here.
Do we need to make a motion here? Or just reach a consensus?
You can reach a consensus
Yeah.
that if you don't.
I'm not hearing anyone with a strong opinion, so
No.
the board's neutral and going to look at your application, zoning hearing board.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. I actually tested the darn thing before I got here, but I must have
Lost all its juice on the way.
Chris, next up on this agenda item.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The other application that's before the zoning hearing board will be heard on June 26th. This is the application for 1126 Grove Road. This was previously discussed back at the May 2nd board meeting. The original application was to appeal a notice of violation that was issued for the construction of a wall without following the requirements of section 8447 of the Township zoning ordinance. There was a claim of non-conforming status, and we showed information to the board that says that we could not find a wall previously on the property. As followed to that meeting, members of the Township staff and the Township solicitor met with the applicant to discuss the application and other options, and an extension was granted to conduct the hearing. On June 5th, the applicant filed an amended application to the zoning hearing board seeking variances from section 8447 and 8447H1B in order to have two retaining walls located closer than 10 feet to the right-of-way of Grove Road. Provided a copy of the amended application, and this is the documentation that was submitted by the applicant's counsel as part of their amended application. So they're seeking to have the wall goes, I believe, approximately 2 feet into the right-of-way of Grove Road, and they are requesting a variance in order to essentially have the wall remain where it's currently located. Is that correct, Kristen?
Yes.
That is correct. We laid out, Brian, Kristen, and representatives for code inspections met with the applicant. We laid out a variety of options, and they chose to amend their application to request this relief.
Thank you, Chris. Questions from the board?
What is the right-of-way on Grove Road at that particular location? What is the total distance?
33 feet,
33?
16 and a half feet from center line. Inside.
And I believe the carway width is 10 feet, 10 or 12 in each direction. So I did have our street superintendent go out and measure, and that's where he determined it was roughly 2 feet inside the right of way.
I used to stop by there a couple of times just to check out this particular location. I was particularly concerned that if there would be any reason for a vehicle to be stopped in that area, that cars would want to go around it, that may be an issue with that retaining wall. I really didn't see any. I didn't see any reason why a car would be stopped in that particular area for cars to have to want to go around it. So I don't see that as being an issue.
Other questions from the board?
What about the mailbox? Is that
Mailboxes are set so that it can be accessed by.
from the curb?
That's a postal requirement, that's not a requirement.
That doesn't come into play in that.
So that would be their regardless.
Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the mailbox was relocated when they did the wall construction, was it?
I'm sure it was removed and reinstalled.
Yeah, but I don't think it's in a new location than what it was previously.
the board has before it the applicant's petition, and it references a section that isn't mentioned in the attorney letter. So
The original section references the provision in the zone. Their original filing references a provision in the zoning ordinance related to non-conforming status. They were making an argument that they had, I believe it's, what is it, section? 58, that is the provision related to nonconformities. They were making an argument that they were allowed to have this wall because it was an existing legal nonconformity. In doing research, we went back to 2007, and we could find no evidence of a wall in that location. There was a railroad tie, like one single railroad tie in the area. I believe Brian's bringing that up.
Here's their front yard, there's the mailbox, and there's the railroad tie.
And that's the railroad tie. And if you look at the images, if you look at some of the other images of the wall that was constructed, that railroad tie is still there.
other questions from the board?
Well, I personally don't have any appetite for forcing this individual to remove their wall, but, so I would just say this be neutral, except there's any board doing stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I found some of the claims made in the request for variance letter that we received a little, what should I say, just not compelling. But I think I'm neutral on this. Other board thoughts?
Same, I'm neutral. I would see what the zoning says.
Okay, so neutral from the board, and there's no one here for the applicant today, right, obviously, so.
That's correct.
And that'll be on the June zoning hearing board meeting?
June 26th at 7 p.m.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is item number 5, which is presentation from Chris Peterson from Carroll Engineering regarding the results of a stormwater feasibility study that was completed for West Goshen Township.
You can start charging rent.
I was going to say that.
He's selling this paper.
You feel like
Yeah, I know.
Township should invest in one. Leave it up there.
Good evening, thank you for having me here tonight. I'm here to talk about the regional stormwater feasibility study that we recently completed. And I understand it's also been posted to the Township website. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay, great. So to give you a little background on this study, this was originally commissioned back in 2020 to examine the feasibility of providing stormwater infrastructure to 16 neighborhoods across the township, consisting of approximately 1,540 acres, having little or no existing stormwater management. The goal of this study was to provide the 3 main deliverables that you see there highlighted in various colors. The first of which was a report of our findings. The second was providing a conceptual plan for the stormwater infrastructure in each of the areas, and then also providing an opinion of cost for each alternative. Here's a map that's also available on the Township website, and this is going to be particularly useful to folks looking to determine which area they're actually may be located in this study. So I'll just highlight a couple of things. The one thing I'll note is that the numbering convention has nothing to do with priority or anything like that. Really, the numbering just began at the northwest quadrant of the township and then proceeded to the southeast. So if you're interested or you live in a particular area here, you would reference this map, find out what your area designation is. For instance, say you lived here, this would be 2, and you would know which report to go to. There's quite a bit of information, so I think the main focus of my presentation tonight is to just help you navigate the various materials that are now available on the Township website. Each individual area has its own standalone report, which will look something like the one before you. This is similar to the presentation that I had presented back in October for the North Hill area. In the reports, I've just highlighted a couple of the main sections. First of which is, an introduction. So this provides an introduction as to why the study was taken or commissioned by the board originally, what were the goals, and that type of thing. Then we move on to existing conditions. In this section, we discuss various drainage patterns that the area has, any soils or slopes that are unique to the area. And then we also get into a discussion of any of the existing conveyance that we observed during our field observations. And then lastly, we discuss if there was any detention. I don't know that it will come as a surprise, but there was very little detention in some of these neighborhoods just based on their age. Then we move into the proposed improvements. This provides a discussion of some of the recommendations you'll see on our exhibits that we've provided, some of the exhibit plans. It details what are the appurtenances of the system that we're proposing, whether it be inlets, end walls, various piping, and the sizes that go along with that. What are some of the challenges that come with installing some of these improvements? So any easements that may be required are listed there. If some of the improvements encounter a state right-of-way, we indicate whether or not we think PennDOT HOP would be involved with that. We touch on various other things that have to do with permitting. We filed a PIND for each one of these areas, so we try to determine what some of the hits may be in terms of sensitive species, whether that be plants or animals or things like that may come up if and when you decide to do a project in any of these areas. And then we move on to a discussion of how we produce the opinion of probable cost and where some of that pricing came from. And then lastly, we include some alternates for resident participation. I think it's important that we engage residents and try to address this problem of stormwater in kind of a multifaceted way. So there's some recommendations of things that residents can do today to help drainage within their neighborhoods now. These things have to do with, potential installations of rain gardens, rain barrels, consideration of permeable pavement, that type of thing on individual parcels that would benefit the entire drainage area. And then lastly, and this is the important part to look at, and this is where you're going to be finding a lot of the exhibits that I've already discussed, that we'll go into detail in a second here, but the appendices include Appendix A here. This is where you'll find the plans that we've produced for each one of the areas, as well as Appendix B will include the opinion of probable cost. And then we have some of the technical information and supporting information that went along with some of the calculations that we did, some of the various soil reports, the PIND receipts, and also some of the NOAA rainfall data is also available in each one of these reports. So the conceptual plans were the main deliverable of this study, and they generally consist of the same format for most areas, which I'll go over now, but they consist of a cover sheet, an existing features plan, an existing drainage area plan, and also a proposed drainage improvements plan. This is the same exhibit again that I'll touch on that was also presented on back in October of last year for Area 9, this being the North Hill area. So again, one thing to keep in mind is the flow of these drawings is going to be the same for each one of the areas. And again, you're going to reference that main drawing to find out which area you may be located in if you're interested in looking at a particular area. And then that numbering system is then listed on this cover sheet. We also provide an index sheet showing the exact location on that same plan that we just looked at a second ago, showing the exact location in the township. We have some other pertinent information. This is the utility user list that was produced from filing one call, and then we also have a drawing index here for your information. As we move into the existing features plan, I'll just sort of walk you through what you'll be seeing on each one of these sheets. So each area is produced as an overlay to the aerial of the area. We've also overlaid available contours that we obtained from the PASDA system, so you can see the lay of the land. In certain instances, in most every drawing, we've indicated slope areas. So if you're not used to digesting what contour information looks like, at least we can tell you which way things are flowing and help you understand just general drainage patterns. And then we also take a look at, we also have existing water courses listed on here. There's an existing pond. And the thing that we're concerned with this study is also the existing infrastructure. So that would be the items shown in yellow here. I know it's a little hard to see. Again, I encourage you to go in and digest this information that's available on the township website. The next plan here would be indicating what the various drainage areas to each one of these structures that you're seeing a picture for. These were taken during our field observations to just sort of serve as a quick reference to the township and to give you a general sense of what the condition of everything is. I will say that the color convention here is kind of arbitrary. It's just to make certain areas stick out, and they don't have anything to do with a priority or that type of thing, or the amount of drainage area to a particular structure. And then lastly, we move into the proposed drainage improvements plan. Again, I know it's a little difficult to see here, but this is something we haven't looked at before, but I'll just highlight a couple of things here. So in certain areas, like this yellow right here, this was existing stormwater infrastructure that was cataloged. We did some calculations on it, found out that it was actually still sufficient in its existing condition, so it will remain yellow. Some of the infrastructure is existing but requires replacement because for a variety of reasons. And it could be that the condition was bad, it could be that calculations demonstrate that it was undersized, and I'll say in most cases, all existing infrastructure was undersized, and likely a candidate for replacement. And then we've also indicated areas where the area would benefit from an expansion of the stormwater system, so that those items were shown in green. And again, this is all included in the legend here. It's all been labeled. And then we have a couple of other things too. If there was an opportunity to maybe think about some type of detention, maybe incorporating a rain garden or a basin of some kind, we would highlight those areas also in teal, like these here. And then any area where we thought an easement would be required to do some of this infrastructure improvements, we've also put a hatch sign in for that as well. Again, I apologize, it's a little difficult to see at this scale. An opinion of probable cost was put together for all 16 areas. The sum of the proposed improvements for all 16 was $44.6 million. One thing I will say is that these estimates are useful in determining the scale of magnitude of each area's proposed infrastructure. However, I do want to highlight some of the limitations to the opinion of probable cost that was put together for this study, which I'm going to touch on now. Utility relocations can be a big cost adder to projects. And this is one thing I wanted to call attention to the board and just make you aware that you should expect these costs, and we can't necessarily approximate what these costs are now without doing a fully engineered design with survey and what have you. And a good example right now would be the Balmar culvert replacement project going on right now. So that is a single culvert crossing Balmar Street. As a result of that project, we had to relocate approximately 100 feet of the sanitary sewer and also about 100 feet of water main at the same time. Those two relocations totaled $144,000. So that's just one stormwater crossing. So you can kind of see how these costs can spiral. That's not to say that I think all of this infrastructure will involve the same amount of relocations. It's just something to be mindful of and something that really needs to be considered when you start putting together engineered plans. The second item that is a bit of a limitation here is the easement acquisition. There's some challenges that come with trying to obtain easements to do some of this work, and it's just another thing that we just wanted you to be aware that there was going to be some additional costs and certainly some additional coordination involved with those items as well. And then lastly, this is more nebulous, but unforeseen and incidental impacts. When you're taking water and you're changing drainage patterns, it's foreseeable that you could have unintended consequences that really can't be quantified at this time. Again, without having the benefit of a fully surveyed plan, looking at it from a very detailed engineering aspect. So certain things may arise. These may include having to stabilize stream banks of receiving water courses that now have concentrated storm sewer getting to them. You may be looking at additional erosion controls, that type of thing, and you may also need additional detention facilities depending on how the stormwater calculations come out. So these are just some of the things that we wanted to make you aware of that are limitations in the opinion of probable cost. But again, I think it's a good starting point, and again, it gives you a scale of magnitude of the various projects. The exhibits contained in this report can be used in a variety of ways. which I think are an asset to the township. And the number one thing here is grant applications. So similar to what we did in 2022 in December for the North Hill project, these exhibit plans that we put together as part of the study are a great thing to attach to a grant application. And I really do think it gives you a leg up compared to other municipalities. And I sort of have to commend the board for having the forethought to commission this study, because we're just now seeing other municipalities commission the same types of studies on a regional basis. But they're now, say, a year behind where you may be. So we all know grant programs are competitive in nature. So again, I think this gives you a leg up, and it's it shows that you've put together a concise plan for the ultimate build out and really thought about it. The next item these exhibits are useful for is maintenance prioritization. So we have images of all the structures that we cataloged in the field. These can be provided as a quick reference to municipal personnel. Say, for instance, when issues arise with the existing infrastructure, say there's a collapse in the storm sewer, a sinkhole, that type of thing, you now have an excellent guide to look at and find out exactly where your problem is. And then it also allows you to accommodate future expansion. So say one of these storm pipes has collapsed crossing a roadway, and our plan has identified that this area could be expanded in the future. So now, instead of just replacing the pipe, you can include perhaps an additional structure which could be tied into in the future with an expansion going on either side of it to add additional inlets to a roadway, for instance. And then lastly, long-term planning. And this is just a for instance, but as land development applications are received by the township, the township can now reference this plan and really examine if is there a potential for a public-private partnership in certain instances where potentially a portion of these improvements can be installed with private dollars. So in summary, the stormwater study provides a framework for future potential projects, which can be completed incrementally as part of a cohesive plan for the ultimate build-out. As the township designates projects for implementation, additional research and topographic surveys are recommended, and then opinion of probable costs can be further revised to help the township adequately budget these projects. One more thing to note here is that we're all aware that there's significant work that needs to be done with the rehabilitation of the infrastructure that you do have, and this is mainly attributable to the corrugated metal storm sewers that were installed across the township, something like 50 years ago. Unlike the alternatives proposed in this study, these facilities exist today and are reaching the end of their service life. So the replacement and or the lining of these storm sewers should be carefully considered when planning future stormwater initiatives as well. And I'd like to thank you very much. And again, just note that these materials for all 16 areas are available on the township website. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but I believe there is going to be a form available for any resident inquiries.
So our plan was, after tonight's presentation, we would create a form that anybody can submit to us, kind of to streamline any sort of questions, and we're going to designate a specific email address where people can email to, something like stormwater@westgoshen.org, to provide any comments, and then that way we can sort of combine everything into one central location to send any comments that may come to Chris.
Is this up on the website now?
The plan is, but the form and the email address are not. That'll probably be, I was going to announce that in the e-newsletter, so that'll probably be next week.
One suggestion was made that any inquiries that we get in and it's submitted on this form, doesn't necessarily need to be addressed at this time, but maybe can be included as an appendices to the report. So, if and when you decide to implement one of the projects in any of the particular areas, those comments from residents are valuable, and I think they do need to be considered, and I think it would be nice to include them as part of the plan for future consideration.
And just to kind of add on that, one thing that we were talking about was with our application for the North Hills development, I think one of the most powerful pieces of evidence we have were the pictures that were provided to us by various residents in the construction area. And so we want to encourage them as they're providing comments, if they have any documentation, to submit to us as well.
Chris, as far as applying for the grants, as they come up, for this project, can we use this feasibility study to submit that information with the grant, or would we have to do more design study in order to submit the grant? So that this would be grant ready, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yes, actually, it's probably more high level than what they're used to seeing in these grant applications. Again, this is coming back to, why I think you have a leg up on other applications, because a lot of times you just have a description of what you'd like to do and a rudimentary sketch. Well, now you have a cohesive plan for what you want to do, and maybe the grant application can only cover a portion of that. Well, we can mark off a phased area of that project, but you still see the ultimate build out as the reviewer of the grant. And I don't know, I think it's an attractive sell if I was a grant reviewer, but that's just wishful thinking.
So you would submit the entire feasibility study for a grant and just focus on one area to show the full picture of what we're doing in the township?
I think you would know that those materials are available and just include the exhibits from the grant and then maybe the opinion probable cost at that time.
Yeah, wherever you're focusing the application on, you would tailor the exhibits to that section. Like we did for North Hills. I mean, we were still in the process, but we used what Chris had completed up to that point, but did note that it was part of a larger study that was being completed. And essentially, with the grant applications, you don't need to have it fully designed and engineered. You generally, if you're awarded, have a number of years in which to complete the project.
Do you have any, from your experience, any suggestions for other grant opportunities that may be coming down the pike or currently available that we could possibly pursue?
We, as a company, have had a lot of luck with the PA Small Water and Sewer, and that's a yearly grant program, and is it yearly? Brian, you're shaking your head.
The only thing I could add to this conversation about grants is it depends on the grant program you're going for. I've been involved in grant applications that some have to be shovel ready. So if they're fully designed and they don't pay for design, they only pay for construction, they award the projects for a shovel ready project, which these are not. Other grant applications will pay for design and engineering, grant acquisition, or easement acquisition, utility relocation. They'll give you money towards the whole project. So it depends on the application process.
Because we had shovel ready for the sewer. We had to be shovel ready for
So
a lot of the grants that we applied for the sewer.
It just depends on which grant program you go after. Right now, the only one I know of is the small water, which we've applied for, and I believe Chris is correct, it is a yearly program, and you're in this year's cycle already. So you could potentially apply for one next year, but I don't think you can apply for a grant in that program if you currently have one with it. So once you have one, you got to finish that before I think you can apply for another. I'm not positive on that restriction. So there is potential yearly, every year, that this is something you could use if the grant application comes up. You're that far ahead of already preparing the application.
In your studying all this in these 16 areas, do you have any feeling for which areas you would say are prioritized that should be addressed first? We've already, as a board, decided North Hills is one area we wanted to address, and we started pursuing that. Are there any other areas in your study that you feel would be a high priority?
We didn't assign a priority system to anything. There are a couple of areas that I think some things could be done now that don't actually involve coordination with the township. Really, it has to do with petitioning PennDOT. I think there was two areas in particular, and memory of what the numbering system of those two areas were escapes me right now. But basically, I'll just touch on one area. It was along, I believe, Old Fern Hill Road. In that particular drainage basin, about half the neighborhood drains to this one point on the side of Westchester Pike. And there's a single PennDOT inlet there, which is the cause of the flooding issue. So there's an inlet there, and during our inspection, you couldn't see the inlet because it was so either overgrown or clogged with material. So once that clogs up, that was the only place for stormwater to go, and it just backed up. And the township was aware of this issue, and I don't think it's the township's issue here. It's really PennDOT's problem. So I think there's some work that can be done to petition PennDOT to correct some of their issues. And again, that had to do with two of the areas. Again, I apologize for not being able to tell you which numbers those areas are at this time, but I think that could be done now if I had to pick a priority. Because we all know coordination with PennDOT takes rather long.
Chris, I mean, one thing that really was to the North Hills advantage was that they had that receiving wetlands/pond area. So collecting stormwater in a broader, faster, quicker to get it down to avoid the localized flooding within the neighborhood. There was a detention available for that water to go to. And these other these other areas, I don't think we saw any other similar situations that would allow that kind of advantage that North Hills has. Because if you think about it, what we're doing is we're increasing the capability to move more water more quickly to the receiving water course. That's what these feasibility studies do. But that could be unintended consequences to what will happen in that water course. I know you mentioned stream bank stabilization and other things, but most of these are, from what I know, are just small creeks. There's no wetlands area like North Hills has. Would you agree?
Yes, I agree, and I think that's an excellent observation, and it is something to consider, and that's one of the things that I had tried to touch on back here on the unforeseen impacts. It is a big unknown. You are taking what is essentially the same volume of stormwater, but putting in storm sewers means it's more efficient. It's taking it off the roadway faster, it's putting it into a concentrated pipe, so there could be unforeseen consequences downstream. And there were very few areas that were available for new detention to try to mitigate those things, similar to what you would do if it was a brand new neighborhood. So, these are things to consider, and they're a bit of an unknown at this point.
I see you had a slide in there about the CMP issue. Were you giving the board a hint that you think that's an area that we really need to address now?
Yes, it was a bit of a hint. You've got quite a bit of infrastructure that is reaching the service life. And this is, again, things that you have on the ground now that, should they fail, you could have more flooding issues than you do have today. And there are certain instances where if we wait any longer, you may miss an opportunity to correct an issue with a lining system as opposed to replacing it completely. So I know that there is a study going on right now, and there's Dave's group's looking into vacuuming out these systems and getting a video to get a real sense of what can be lined, what can be replaced, but it certainly seems like something worthwhile doing and will certainly need to be done. So it just seemed like there was going to be a large cost expenditure in just trying to maintain the infrastructure you have. And then, of course, there's the complication of trying to plan for anything new.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Does anyone attending have any questions for Chris? Steve?
So now that we have this roadmap, what is the next step for the board?
I'll just speak from my personal opinion. What I want to do is wait for Dave to get a good view of those 12 or 13 areas that were identified in the HRG study that was done from the Army Corps of Engineers, to look at the existing infrastructure and say, what have we got to fix sooner rather than later, because we don't want it to fail and end up with a bigger cost of repair. And then once we get our hands around the total of that cost, we can look at the total picture together, CMP replacement or lining project work and the cost for that, coupled with this. My personal view, again, I want to speak for myself, these kind of projects to me would be more based on availability of grants and the ability of the township to successfully win those grant awards and allow us to continue the journey, hopefully, that will stop if we get the North Hills one. That's my opinion.
I know you talked about the stormwater fee last year, and I'm not sure, I don't remember how much that would generate that you were talking about, but I mean, is that possible funding to start some of this work? The longer term work that's here, I mean, $44 million is
A lot of money.
a lot of money, and I'm not sure you're going to solve the problem other than push it
It's going to be
someplace
north of
else.
44 million because Chris had those,
Yeah,
all
I mean,
those
just
issues.
push the word downstream, so you're not really solving the problem in a lot of cases. So I guess, just
So what if it was something we looked at with regard to just the increased operating expenses we're having in the township, running the street sweeper, we're still considering whether we need to have a back truck or not for use to maintain inlets and to keep the lines clear. So you've got ongoing operating costs that we're currently funding from the general fund. And then in addition, we have these projects that we have to do for our MS4 permit compliance. And they're not small by any means. It's $5 billion worth of projects in our current permit cycle. And then you've got these other two big items, the CMP and neighborhoods that have nothing, so to speak. So you have to get your mind around the whole thing, and right now we're kind of trying to take one step at a time and get as much information as we can.
I just don't want to see this put on the shelf. And, you know.
The way it won't get put on the shelf is we're going to keep it fresh enough to say, is there an area here that we can put in a grant application for these programs that we already know of or that might come along. So.
But it will take years and years.
Yeah, I mean, we won't be around on this.
We won't be around.
But now we did apply for the North Hill grant. Is there anything that's come back from that at this point? Or?
September?
Probably sometime this fall, I'd say. September, October timeframe.
And do you do the same thing again this year for another piece of?
It's going to depend on the award and when the round opens up, as Brian indicated. I don't believe you can have two funded applications at the same time. So if we're awarded one for that project, I don't believe we could apply for and get awarded one for another project under the same program. We'd have to look for an alternative program.
Just so I'm clear on that, so if we are successful in the fall and get the grant money, I presume we do North Hills next year, get the design done, get the construction work done. It wasn't that huge a project. So that would allow us in the fall of,
Fall 24.
when is the application? It's like December, isn't it?
You probably have to, if they notify us in September, you probably have to do all the closeout in order to apply for another one. And the closeout requirements for a grant application with the state they're long. They're not insurmountable, but they can be cumbersome.
Okay, let's keep it on the radar though, something we could be applying for another PA small water grant.
Absolutely. And depending on the size of the project, it could also be something that we work into our capital plan as we go through the budgeting process. It could also be something that as Dave maps out the road paving program, if there's a small area that we could address, it could be addressed as part of our paving program and those specifications. So there are a variety of, in my mind, there are a variety of different means in which you can address components of what's been put together. But to Ms. Gagne's point, to do the whole thing would take a long time.
Any other questions?
These are all residential areas on this map, correct?
Okay, well, thank you, Chris.
But just to your point there, Steve, about North Hills, what really drove that project was the involvement of the residents of that area. So in any one of those 16 areas, the residents in the area really feel strongly about this. They need to come forward and let us know, and that helps drive this project.
Yeah, because I own property in a couple of areas, and I'm coming on the fringe on one of them, and there really isn't a problem there. So I mean, some of these areas are kind of expanded, it looks like, to some extent. And you may not have to do, like my son lives over in Yorktown as well, and they don't have a water issue around there. Most of it drains into the university property. But his property is included in the map of the Roswell area and all that, which obviously does have a problem.
They have issues out toward High Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so I'll mention my kids do it probably. Take pictures.
Okay, well, good. Thank you, Chris. So don't sit down yet. I think you're up for the next item, which is agenda item number 6. Discussion and possible approval of a proposal from Carroll Engineering for the development of subdivision plan for 315 Powell Lane. Chris, do you want to introduce the subject?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So before the board this evening is a proposal from Carroll Engineering Corporation for the completion of a subdivision plan for a parcel of 315 Powell Lane. Brian put it up on the screen for everybody to see. There is an existing footpath that connects Powell Lane to Cooper Smith Park to the south, and the purpose of this subdivision would be to create an independent parcel that would be maintained by the township for this footpath. We have spoken with the property owner who is amenable to the proposal. The fee that Brian, or that Chris's office has proposed is $11,750, which would include the survey and subdivision plan. Chris in his proposal noted that relief from the zoning hearing board may be necessary due to the size of the parcel. It's located in the R3 zoning district, which requires a minimum lot size of 18,000 square feet, and the area being considered is approximately 2,000 square feet. The existing parcel is 26,000 square feet. However, I'm wondering if we were to add the parcel and kind of reverse subdivide into Cooper Smith Park, into the land of Cooper Smith Park. I wonder if that negates the need to go to the zoning hearing board. But that is the proposal that's before the board this evening.
That's a little clearer to see.
And the footpath is to the west of the property, right along that area.
Would there be any cost to the parcel to take it over? The purchase?
Yes, we did do an appraisal, and there was an appraised value that came back for the cost of the parcel that the board is aware of because of I don't think I should say the price that came out of that, should I? Okay, the price that came out of the appraisal was approximately $14,000.
Chris, I have to say, I find the number a little high for a survey and the work that's proposed in the scope. It seems a little high for the amount of effort required. So I'm going to ask the board if they agree, and maybe we should have a competitive price on this just to make sure it is what it costs to do this kind of work.
Yeah, there's a bit of an unknown factor with doing boundary surveys, particularly in old neighborhoods like this. And sometimes you end up finding yourself going down the rabbit hole of trying to find adequate monumentation to accurately set where these property corners are. This will need to be monumented once it's subdivided off there. So the number, ensures that we're covered here. I do expect it to be hopefully less effort than I'm anticipating. I will say that, but it could be complicated.
Fair enough. Board, do you agree with me on that?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, I do.
Just give it a shot, I'm sure.
Okay, so is there any questions about the actual work required tonight? If we're going to ask staff to get another price for the work, is there any questions in particular we need clarification on?
That's pretty straightforward.
It just does raise one issue, though. This is R3 residential district, correct? But there's an inlay in this whole area. For some reason, there's like 4 houses along Powell Lane that were cut out of the R3C district, inlay district, which would have made any issues, I would think, that would have to go before the zoning board mute, because the lot size is smaller in an R3C inlay district compared to the R3 district. So I'm just wondering if the board should consider changing the map of the R3C inlet overlay as part of this whole process. That's a separate issue.
I believe that the small property size is based upon the piece that you're subdividing off of the existing property that you would own. The parcel itself.
Yeah, it's not the parcel remaining, it's the fact that you're creating a parcel of like.
That would be on 2,000.
Yes.
But I don't think that's needed, if you're merging with the township plan, it's not going to be 2,000 square feet.
Yeah.
So that would be a solution to the problem there.
Yep.
Okay.
But John, to your point, there may be another reason that those 4 properties, I think it's a good point that we should maybe take a look at the zoning map and try to figure out why those 4 were left separately.
Yeah, they're just actually cut out. That puts weight around it.
I can't remember how that was determined. We can look at that.
I wonder if it's a question of size, because those, just in looking at some of the acreage, I think they might be a little bit larger than some of the other lots that were in that district overall. That could be incorrect.
I guess there's an action there to dig into that and find out what this R3C overlay is about. Any other questions? Does anyone attending the meeting have any questions? Doug?
One dumb question, but is this for the township to take over the walking path?
Basically, yes. Because right now, people are accessing the park from Powell Lane there and using that homeowner's property to get through there from that path.
Okay,
The proposal is to carve out a sliver there.
It's right here.
Okay, well, thank you, Chris.
So we will obtain a proposal from another firm and present both to the board for their consideration.
Correct. Okay, next on the agenda is item number 7, reports for the month of May. First up is the police report presented by Chief Michael Carroll.
Thank you. The report for the police department for May 2023, we responded to 2,085 calls for service. 56 of those were alarms, and 7 of those alarms were found to be valid. 50 were accidents, and 16 of those accidents were vehicle accidents. We drove a total of 20,410 miles. We performed extra traffic enforcement on West Warren Road, South High Street, Taylor Mill Road, Falcon Lane, South New Street, Westchester Pike, Snyder Avenue, Taylor Pike, and Mackenzie Drive. In the area of career development, our officers did their normal monthly trainings, and in addition to that, we did our spring range training department-wide. Detective Cuddy completed his crisis intervention training, the CIT, that we have all our officers go through. Our officer DeLeon completed standardized field sobriety testing. Myself, Captain Comidio, Lieutenant Cotter, and Sergeant List attended an FBI retrainer. Sergeant Holman attended battery electric vehicle training, which has to do with batteries and fires and electric vehicles. And Lieutenant Cotter, Officer Asher, Officer Meredith, and Officer Riley attended stop stick pursuit training. In the area of alarms, we had a total alarm violation for the month of $4,100, with 7 of those offenses being 3 of those offenses being a 7 or higher violation. We performed 34 assists to other departments for a total amount of time of 28.8 hours, and we received assists on 43 occasions over the month. That's the report from the police department. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Board have any questions for the chief? Chief, I did like the little table showing the alarm violations by account. Kind of gives you a good feel for how many are 1 and 2, and how many are 6 and 7. It looks good. Any questions for the chief?
I just have one question. I know we've discussed this before, but just again, just a reminder, can you describe what exactly selective enforcement means? What does it entail? What does the traffic division do with an area that's been designated for special enforcement?
They go and watch for violators in that specific area and address them if they see them.
I mean, do you have a certain amount of time that they have to spend there at a particular location?
No, not a minimum amount of time. No. When they're available, they go there and perform traffic defect.
I mean, there's something that has to be done every shift, every other shift, or you have to like map out when a schedule or something like that?
No. They're given specific areas to perform extra traffic duty on over every 2-week period, and they do. And it's obviously they do it when they're available to do it, so it depends on how busy the day is.
Other questions? The front 2 list seemed a little bigger this month, just eyeballing it. I didn't count it.
Very busy.
Very busy, okay. Is there any questions from the public for the chief? Doug?
Chief, for the selective enforcement, do you use special equipment such as mass crosses?
Sometimes, yeah, depending on what the area is and what the problem is, yeah.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Nate.
Yeah, just a question. Item 7 has to do with the culvert on Matlack Street. Did we?
Did I print the wrong agenda?
Pardon?
I might have printed the wrong agenda. I apologize.
Oh, okay. Just sorry.
I apologize. It is available on the website. I must have printed the wrong one. I apologize for that. That was the last month's meeting.
Or no, that was
No,
that was
right.
That was a complete agenda.
That was preliminary.
yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
I apologize for that one. That was on me.
I'm right in the middle of the meeting, I have to point it back, so, okay.
Okay, so
Sorry
next,
about that, Nate.
No problem.
next on the agenda is Board of Supervisors
I'm going to
announcements.
call you now.
Tina, would you like to start?
Sure. I'm going to start off with good news. The Westchester Fire Department has improved their public protection classification, which they call PPC. Score analyzed by Insurance Service Offices, ISO 033Y. So I want to give a shout out to Chief Steve Pellner for that. It does potentially affect the residents. I'll just give you a little background on how it can affect the residents. ISO is an independent for-profit organization who evaluates public fire protection services and classifies a community's ability to suppress fires. The public protection classification provides an objective national standard to assist in determining property insurance costs as well as other planning and budgeting objectives. The ISO assigns a PPC score on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the best. 50% of the scoring is a direct reflection on the overall health of the fire department, similar to like staffing, training, equipment readiness, and availability. 40% is based on water supply. Only 26 departments in Pennsylvania scored a 1 or 2. 162 have a score of 3, which is what our fire department scored. This places Westchester Fire Department in the top 12 in Pennsylvania and the top 16% nationally. ISO has also updated the Westchester class to incorporate the entire fire protection services, which now includes Westchester Borough, Westchester Township, East Bradford, Westtown, Birmingham, and Thornbury. As a homeowner, what this means to you, potentially, is that your homeowner's insurance carrier provides discounts for a lower PPC value, and you may see a lower premium. 75% of underwriters utilize the PPC data in determining homeowners' premiums. So you might want to check it out with your carrier. I checked it out with my carrier, and they're looking into it right now. So you could get a discount as a result of that. So thank you, Westchester Fire Department, for potentially saving all of our residents some money and for the accomplishment of what they did. So I'm going to announce that. Also, the pipeline incident tabletop exercise was held on February 15th of 2023. We have since received the after action report improvement plan on May 12th of 23. The issues found out of that tabletop exercise were very minor and they were all fixable. We met with internal staff to discuss that, and all issues should be resolved by the beginning of July.
A few of them are ongoing.
Well, yeah, but the ones that can be corrected will probably be July timeframe.
And I did update, just to add to that, I did update the report with the action items that we discussed, and I sent those on the entry. So.
Okay, and then we're hoping to meet, you probably didn't get the email the first week in July.
I did see that.
Okay. Also, I did a tour of the Oakland Cemetery that was put on by the Historic Commission that did a great job, very well organized, very informative. Also, Good Fellowship celebrated National EMS Week, which is a great success. They did a great job, helicopters landing and all kinds of stuff. Latino celebration was on June 9th, which is very successful at Henderson High School. And I guess we'll be attending the Westchester Safe School Summit tomorrow. And we also had a meeting on June 5th with Chris Hoffman. He's with Lower Moreland Township. John and I had that meeting to discuss basically different methodologies of how they formulated their fire and EMS tax. They also won an award at the governor's ceremony that we were at for SAC for creating, the way they handled it was called a Chief of Emergency Services is what they hired. We will be discussing that at our next coalition meeting in more detail, along with 2 other townships relative to that. That's it.
Thank you, team. Rob, do you have any announcements?
No, thanks.
Okay. Ashley.
Sure, I just have a couple, sorry. So we attended the Padres Latinos on June 9th at Henderson High School. It was a really nice night. Chief was there and Officer DeLeon joined us as well. And also I wanted to bring to the board's attention that I have been speaking with Andy at Chester County Health Department about the mosquito issues. So one of the things that he was going to look at, and he has been looking at, is the property on Westtown Road near Barker Park with the pool, the abandoned pool. So we were going to keep an eye on that because we had a huge spike in West Nile virus last summer, and we're trying to prevent needing to be sprayed in that area. So he actually said that that pool has actually kind of created its own ecosystem. So there's actually not mosquito activity coming from that pool, which is a good thing. He hasn't been seeing a lot of mosquito activity around Barker Park, but he would like to get access to the pump station because he thinks that that might be a source, and he just hasn't been able to see it. So I told him that we would be in contact with him, and we can set up a time that he can go and take a walk around there. But he did see the caps that you put on, so it's good. Thank you for doing that.
If he contacts Dave, I'm sure we can set something up.
Okay.
It's still an active construction, and that's why it's fenced off.
What would the source be there, Dave? I'm just curious, potentially.
Yeah, because it needs to-
There's no stagnant water.
He wants to look.
Yeah, I have to look, but I'm just curious as to what potential.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
He also said that all the gutters and inlets were clear. There's no mosquito activity. So I mean, it's been dry. I don't know if that's why either.
Thank you, Ashley. John?
Monday, May 22nd, Sean Walsh and myself had a curbside meeting with maybe about a dozen or so residents along West Warren Road, with Sergeant Gressler and Officer Ash of the Traffic Division. We just wanted to hear and discuss the concerns that were raised to myself about traffic in the neighborhood, namely speed, volume, and failure to obey stop signs. So we had a great discussion there on the curbside with the Traffic Division folks, and a number of mitigating measures have been done as a result of following up from that meeting, and that's a continuing, keep an eye on that. On Thursday, May the 25th, attended the GFAC event for EMS week, and then also had visited the Aldi for their opening that particular day. Monday, June the 5th, had a virtual meeting with Chris Hoffman that Tina just mentioned, from Lower Marion Township manager, and we discussed our ongoing engagement with the fire companies. On Wednesday, June the 7th, Tina and I conducted a tour of the Greystone Park, proposed to be dedicated to the township staff, very enlightening. Friday, June the 9th, attended the Padres Latinos, along with Tina and Ashley and their families. Their end of the year celebration, and participated in the tamale contest, which was a lot of fun. On Tuesday, June the 20th, Tina and myself, today, we met with the Chief Carroll as part of our monthly board liaison meeting, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, John. I just have one announcement. The board met in executive session just prior to this meeting to discuss a public safety matter with council and the chief of police. Okay, any questions for the board from anyone here? Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 9, Township Manager's announcements.
Mr. Chairman, I only have a few announcements this evening. The first announcement is our monthly e-newsletter will go out next week, week of June 26th. The gazebo dedication for the new gazebo in West Goshen Community Park will be held at 6 p.m. on Sunday, June 25th, so right before the Grease Band concert that is scheduled for that evening at 6:30. Give me a look, Ashley.
Sorry. Ignore me.
No, I'm wondering, did I forget to send around a reminder to everybody, or?
Did you send that email around?
I think I did.
Okay.
But it will be Sunday the 25th at 6 p.m. and then there will be the Grease Band concert right afterwards at 6:30 p.m. Then finally, the Bolmar Street Culvert project is underway. They got started on June 5th, and by all accounts, everything is going well, for the most part. I know Dave did tell me that we've run into a couple of issues, but that construction is continuing. The detour plan and all the information.
Were they in the field issues that have popped up, or is it design elements?
Yeah, the one utility that we thought we were clear of, we're not. It's right over top of us.
If anyone is interested, Dave did send pictures of what was removed from the ground, and it is pretty incredible. So Dave has documentation of what's being removed. So it's pretty extensive. Those are all the announcements I have for this evening.
Was that the squash tank you found?
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that the
Boiler tank. Boiler tank, yeah.
What are you looking at for completion date? Is 3 months, something like that?
Yeah, we're hoping to get done before school starts.
The contract runs through October 15th, just to collect, to address any punch list items that may come about, but we're anticipating construction completion sometime in August. But the detour information is all up on the township website. But we haven't gotten any phone calls or any issues so far, so now I just jinxed us. But so far, everything is going rather well.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Chris. Next is Township Engineers announcements. Brian?
Good evening. I have a few things tonight for the board. Today, Rick Craig was in today, and we took the drone out to fly at Greystone. I have a picture we took today out there. You can see some of the pictures. This is Dam 181, which is going to be our dam. Part of the reason he was here today was to test the drone, because we learned before that the control software for the drone so we have two pieces of software. One is through DJI, the manufacturer of the drone. That allows the drone to have a clearance to fly because of location to the airport. And then Pix4D is the control software that controls the drone and takes the pictures. Well, we tried it today after resetting everything, and we had to manually fly it. And if we got too high, it didn't let us go up because the DJI software did not clear the drone for flight that close to the airport. So we were able to take some pictures where you hand fly it and you got to keep taking hand pictures. The actual program to control the drone does not function anymore. That being said, we have money in the budget for purchasing a new drone. We have found a new DJI drone. It is a Matrice 30. Price tag is just under the $10,000 budgeted item. However, in consultation with the manager and the chief, we have decided to buy a upgraded model, which is the Matrice 30T, which T stands for thermal. It has a thermal capability. That drone is $13,999. What we've done is we have it set for the PO to be paid the $10,000 from the engineering budget and $3,999 from Chief's budget. I wanted to bring it to you tonight so you were aware of purchase and what we're looking to do. This allows for thermal capabilities and also has a laser rangefinder on it as well for measuring distances. So part of this there'll be myself and Emily will be going through the certifications for pilot, as well as some of the police officers will be certified as well.
So just to interject, so what we can do is we can note that additional expenditure in the mid-year budget report that we'll do in July. We feel this would be particularly beneficial for, we mentioned the Greystone Park. We think, given the size of that park, we think this would be particularly beneficial on the police side for that asset when it's acquired by the township.
How old is the drone we have now?
8 years.
And it's not fixable, I guess, at this point.
The technology is 8 years old, so the newer drones have capabilities built into them that, through FAA, that they know where they're at with for flight clearances, and the software is completely different. The old drone does not have that USB transponder chip in it, so there's the control software. We got the request. Rick submitted the request yesterday for clearance to fly today. Got the request for clearance, but when we got out in the field with the drone and got it set up, the clearance never cleared. So that technology, 8-year-old technology, doesn't work. And the battery life we flew today, and the longest flight we had was 12 minutes. And we have 7 batteries, and we used 5 of them today to fly and get 133 pictures. And the new batteries for the drone are still the same capacity as the old batteries. They're not anymore. The new drone battery, the flight time is 41 minutes per battery. It comes with 2 batteries.
How do you envision being able to use this for the police?
But the big thing was the new park. Anybody involved needed to be in the new park that could, especially at night, help us.
Chris, just going back to the incremental cost, are you absorbing this cost in your current budget?
Yes.
So we don't need to have it as a plus on the mid-year review, because we already budgeted 10 and she's going to absorb it in his approved budget, so it's not a change overall.
That's correct, but when we did the capital plan, we noted $10,000 for a new drone. This is over and above that, even though there isn't an increase or material effect to the budget. Again, we just wanted the board to be aware of this.
Okay, thank you.
What is the yearly maintenance cost on that calibration and anything?
It's a laser rangefinder like you would use for a golf course or anything else. So the calibration of that, it's self-calibrating. We looked at what the cost would be if we wanted to change from the regular 30, which is Matrice 30, to Matrice 30T in the future. The camera is one unit, so all the lenses are in one piece. You have to buy a whole new camera. The new camera itself is $10,000. So if we would get the $10,000 drone without the thermal and decide in 2 years to add a little to it, it's another $10,000 to change, because it's a one-piece camera system. So
And the thermal capability that's able to see with at nighttime, is that the idea?
it shows your heat signatures.
It shows what?
Heat signatures. So like you can see heat, and if somebody's hiding, you can find the heat source. You can see heat in buildings. You can see heat signatures of buildings, like the heat of the windows versus not.
What about the existing drone, once you purchase a new one, can that go up a municipal bid or something like that?
That's a decision for the board. I was approached by a municipality who was interested in purchasing it, and I told them to contact me and I would bring it before the board.
Okay.
So under the second-class township code, if the board wishes to sell it to another municipality, you don't have to go through the bidding process.
Right.
But then if you don't like the price, we can put it up on municipal bid and see what kind of price we can get for it.
Okay.
1 second here. So the previous drone we had was considered a cinema drone. This new drone is considered an enterprise drone, which is more for business. Cinema is more for taking movies. It was more of a hybrid. This one is strictly an enterprise drone.
So what does that mean in terms of better capability then?
Well, this is showing you what it's got.
So the quality of the cameras, for example, will be higher grade.
The quality of the cameras is for more enterprise for business uses. Cinema is really more of a movie camera for flying out and taking pictures of movies.
And this has the laser for measurement?
Yes. Yes.
Is this heat resistance too? Like in case there's a fire or something, can we use it? Is there like a max heat capacity?
I believe so, yes. So you can use it. This is showing you some capabilities. So this is the thermal signature right here.
And is there insurance on this in the event it crashes by any means?
It would be added.
It comes with one repair.
Repair, what if it's totally damaged?
It's included.
Oh, that's included too?
That's the first.
So you get a one-time
We
event?
can pay extra to get more if we want to.
Yeah.
But
What's your experience with the one we've had already in terms of
we have
damage?
we have the refurbished Phantom, which is the practice drone. So that way then you learn to practice on that one while you're going through the licensing and practicing, and then you fly with this one.
Okay.
And the flight, the capabilities there's your 50 degrees Celsius is where it can go. For
Yeah, I only say that because my son drives the drones from Pico, and Eagle got into the drone that he drove, and it totally destroyed the drone. There was nothing left. So I'm just saying the potential's there, and if we get a one-time shot at it, it's totally destroyed.
So it comes with one. We can purchase a package for more later after the first year and look at budgeting for future years for that.
Emily's really gonna like this. I mean, the capabilities are
And
So
then
you-
we did a project at Westchester University with one of our classes where they flew buildings first in the morning to see heat signatures on the buildings.
Because you can make a decision about additional insurance repair costs as you get into the next budget cycle.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you know what that is, the extra cost for the
No,
insurance?
I did not look at that for budgeting because of,
You have
it
to-
comes with
Yeah.
one's included.
Okay.
So.
Okay, you said you had three things, Brian?
And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was just give an update on the Barrens. As of last week, the contractor has started to remove vegetation, And we are currently working with the developers specialists to get the updated plan. They gave us a plan that indicates they can get everything done this year. We've asked them questions and haven't gotten the answers back yet.
This was this so-called plan that had been approved by PADEP.
We don't know if it's been approved by
No, DCNR.
DCNR, I'm sorry.
It hasn't been approved in writing and approved in concept through discussions. We had asked them to show something in writing that DCNR approved it.
Okay.
We received that on Thursday.
Received
this
Updated plan.
this updated plan and
Okay.
correspondence on Thursday.
And the last thing I had is we're continuing to monitor the dams. The two that are, have been constructed, they're still within their 60-day monitoring cycle that they have to come back to for a 60-day update to DEP. When you first close the dam, they give you 60 days and then come back and report to the DEP. And that's 6 cases, I think, up either next week or the first week of July. So they have to report back. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Well, I know that Dave had mentioned that there was some movement with the gravel on the trails already, I guess from the last storm.
Yes.
Have they been on top of kind of maintaining that?
No.
Not at all?
I was trying to get up there yesterday and today, but I've been pulled in different directions. At some point this week, I'm hoping to get up there and see what happened from the damage from Friday.
I can tell you from being out there today that from the caretaker's house to dam 182, up to the hill where you went to the big dam, there was 2 trees down across the
Trail.
There's 2 trees that had fallen in, that Rick and I took care of today. And pulled off, they were small enough we could pull off the trail.
You got it wrong?
Yeah. They were just branches, they weren't a full tree, they were just branches that had fallen, but we were able to clear them so we could drive around to the dam to check it out.
Does anybody have any questions for Brian? Steve?
Did I also read that the zoning hearing board made a decision on the follow-up?
Yes.
That was going to be next.
That's
So
the
that's
next
the agenda item.
one.
Is there any questions for Brian on the engineer's report? Doug?
How often would you really need this thermal capability?
Who knows? Who knows? Never. Could be never, could be once a week, could be once a month, as needed.
Somebody's lost.
Is there any way you can get this upgraded one for less?
No. That's the best, that is the list price from the manufacturer. I looked at multiple places for it, and
Can it be a CoStar's purchase?
I mean, you can look at CoStar's, but again, this is well under the bidding threshold. So you're probably not going to find a better price.
the other issue is finding it in stock.
What's the life on something like this?
8 years.
Well, that was the life on the last one. I wonder if
The technology will probably change.
The technology has changed, that this one may, the jump in technology in the last 8 years may not be the same jump in the next 8.
Yeah.
So who's going to get trained to be able to operate this? You and who else?
Emily and I are going to go do the training and get our pilot's license this year.
Are you from the?
Yes, anybody can do it.
You have to be a driver.
Basically, there's multiple ways you can take a training course and you have to go take a test. There's a test, you get your license.
Any other questions for Brian? Very good, we'll move on to next agenda item, which is zoning officer announcements. Chris, are you on board for this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So as previously discussed, there will be an application for 1126 Grove Road discussed at the June 26th meeting, and at the July 24th meeting will be an application for East High School. The zoning hearing board did meet on May 22nd. They heard the application for 992 South Walmart Street. They were requesting relief from section 8438B6 for a 16.5 side yard setback where 30 feet is required. This is to build a 4,500 square foot addition. Zoning hearing board had a special meeting on June 5th and issued a decision granting the requested relief. So I anticipate we'll receive a land development application for the proposed addition in the near future. The zoning hearing board did render a decision on the application for 929 South High Street at a special meeting on June 5th. In their decision, the zoning hearing board denied the request for relief from section 84.8 of the zoning ordinance. That was the section that set the maximum size for a convenience store at 5,500 square feet. They were requesting just over 6,000 square feet. So that request was denied. The requested relief from section 8419G related to the dumpster was granted. So they were granted the relief to allow a 20-foot front yard setback from Route 202 for the placement of a dumpster where a 40-foot setback is required. I did provide a copy of correspondence from the solicitor Mark Thompson to the applicant. So Steve, to answer your question, they got half of what they were seeking, but the size of the building was denied. So now it becomes a question for Wawa as to whether or not they're going to continue forward with the project and submit a conditional use application for the township's consideration and a preliminary land development application.
Or appeal it.
Or appeal it. They have 30 days from the date of the decision in which to appeal it.
The day of the decision was noted as what day?
It was June 5th.
June 5th.
Did they issue a written decision?
No, the written decision was actually issued last week.
So it's 30 days from the date of the written decision.
So it would be about mid-July they would have to appeal. And that appeal goes to court of common
The letter from the solicitor was dated June 6th. So.
But there was
a matter the actual, with the findings of fact, conclusions of law,
okay.
30 days from that date.
Okay.
And that was issued, I believe it was issued around, and I will circulate a copy of that, I believe it was issued late last week.
Okay.
But there are no other applications before the zoning hearing board. Those are the decisions rendered on June 5th.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris about zoning issues, either from the board or anyone in attendance? Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 12, approval of the Board of Supervisors meeting minutes of May 18th, 2023. Does the board have any corrections or adjustments to the meeting minutes?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes from May 18th.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Tina. Not hearing any adjustments to the meeting minutes. Are there any public comments on the motion? Okay, ready to take a vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes 5-0. Next is agenda item number 13, approval of the Treasurer's Report dated May 31st for the General Fund, the Sewer Revenue Fund, the Waste and Recycling Fund, the Capital Reserve Fund, and the bills to be paid from these funds.
I have one question. I don't know if this entry was listed twice or a chair for Detective Could got 2 chairs.
What page is that on?
That's on, I don't know. There's no page number. Oh, 4. It just says chair for Detective Could, 167.99 and 124.95. He got 2 chairs. Maybe you needed 2 chairs.
I don't know why it's listed that way, because the one category is uniforms and boots, and the other category is office supplies. So I'll have to look into
Unless it was
that.
miscategorized, could be. Maybe you just got 1 chair and it was miscategorized as something else.
That might have been it, because
Yeah.
I'm looking at the account code and the classification. The first one for 124.95 is listed under uniforms and boots, and the second one for 167.99
It's office
is
supplies.
office supplies. So I'll look
Yeah,
into
it
that.
could have been boots he got or something, maybe misclassified. I don't know.
Any other questions from the board on the Treasurer's Report or the bills? Is there any public questions? Okay, ready to take a vote? All in favor? Can we take a motion on this yet?
No, we did not.
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve the Treasurer's Report and the bills to be paid.
I'll second that motion.
Tina, second. Is there any comments or questions on the motion? Okay, ready to take a vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Tina. Second. I'll second. All in favor of adjournment say aye. Aye.
What are you doing?